All right, check this out, everybody. This is going to be a very, very, very fast video. Do you see this mound of dirt right here? All right, and it looks like they came on the property and took a couple of them away. Here's one right here. Okay, this one right here used to be really high, at least a foot tall. Okay, this one right here used to also be a foot tall. Okay, and I can't show you the area in general because this area is dedicated to an area where I had some property at temporarily. So what this is I'll explain in a minute. So what this is right here is a mound of dirt. Now the first time I came in this area to hide property, this was also at least a foot high. It looks like they came back on the property and took some of it away so it wouldn't look so outwardly apparent that it was put here intentionally. Because gang stalking will not only gaslight the victim, but it will also try and gaslight the victim's followers online, because they already know the responses of victims, meaning that, but not limited to, they know that the victim will eventually expose it. So what they did then was they made these about a foot high and as wide as you see them now, but now it looks like they came back on the property and took some of it away. And there was one over there, and it looks like they took 3 other ones away. Okay, because I remember I got my tape recorder. When I first came to this property, there was 9 of them. Now there's only the remnants of 2. They took some of the dirt away there, and they took some of the dirt away there. Okay, they were all over the place concerning this walking path to come to the spot. And I'm going to show you right now what I mean by the amount of dirt that was originally here. You see this? Okay, that one right there, that one right here, okay, and that one right there. Now, what this crime does, what gang stalking does, is that when they make you homeless, they track you to wooded areas. And then after they track you to wooded areas, they're able to monitor what the victim is doing in real time at all times, including the fact that can be done through remote or monitoring. So they can see where you're hiding your property at. So then what they'll do is when you leave the property to go get water and groceries and come back, and then you go into a spot where you got property hidden at, you'll see the mounds of dirt 1 inch away from every single place you hid property at. Say if you hide property at 22 different places, okay, I can show you generally, like, look at all this over here. You don't see no mounds of dirt. If I was to go over there, you would see no mounds of dirt any fucking place. If you were to go over here, you would see no mounds of dirt at all. The mounds of dirt are propped up right off the area they know, right when you enter the area. So when you enter it and you see it, it's going to stimulate that memory. It's called a memory reference of what they did to you at your previous wooded areas. So say if you pick once they make you homeless and you pick a spot, and you say, okay, I know through past experience they'll steal and damage my property, so I'll hide it in creative ways. So then you start hiding it. So then you create 19 different spots to hide property at. You then go to the grocery store to get groceries and water. And then you come back, and then the next day when you go to get into your property, like to get out a set of clothes or whatever, you discover, when you come back, you discover the mounds of dirt that are 1 inch away from where your property is sitting at. Then you go into it, and you discover items are slashed up and stolen. So this is gang stalking's way of creating a marker, an identifier. So that way they know every time you go into your stuff where it's hidden at, and you discover some of it missing, some of it slashed up, they know you're going to identify it to be connected to gang stalking, because gang stalking is leaving a calling card. They know that when you went into these areas to hide your property, none of these mounds of dirt were there. Okay? So then when you hide property at 19 different separate spots, when you were hiding it, and when you walked away from it, when you approached it to hide it, when you hit it and walked away from it, there was no mounds of dirt. Then when you go back to it, a mound of dirt, a big-ass mound of dirt, is 1 inch away from it at each spot. Yet the mounds of dirt are nowhere else on the property at each spot. Then you go into the property and discover it damaged, slashed up, stolen. They know then you're going to identify it to be connected to gang stalking. Absolutely. And you should research how they're leaving things on victims' porches, breaking into victims' homes, and rearranging furniture, stealing things, replacing them later, and a whole bunch of other sick bullshit. And so in gang stalking crimes, what they want to do is create these are called visual anchors. So that whenever you see them in the future at the next place you go and hide property at, it will trigger that memory reference of what they did at the prior area. That's their way of saying it doesn't matter where you're going to hide property at. We know where you're going to hide property at. Therefore, that fear always has to remain alive, because when you see this, it stimulates the memory of when you've seen it before. When you've seen it before, it was connected to a theft and damage to your property. It's called memory reference and anchoring and triggering connected to gang stalking. So, just as a real fast example, and I gotta let you go. So, say if you go to an area and you hide property in 19 different spots. Then, when you go back to each spot on separate dates, big mounds of dirt are 1 inch away from those spots. Out of 7 or 8 of those spots, when you go into the spot to get the property and you discover your clothes slashed up with razor blades, when you discover things missing, when you discover things taken from one place and put into another, and then things from that place put back into the other place, they know you're going to notice it. So then, therefore, they know you're going to notice the amount of dirt. They know you're going to notice the act of what they did. And then they know your brain is going to correlate both together. Because they know when you went to each of these places to hide the stuff, this shit wasn't there. Neither was the act done. So that's how they take responsibility for it, by propping up a visual prop. It's called anchoring and gang stalking. Absolutely. So in anchoring and gang stalking, when they prop up something and associate it to an act, that way in the future, it then becomes a memory reference. It's reference to memory. Just like when you fucking come home and you discover a bag of tools hidden behind your garage. Okay? What do you think you're going to think? You're going to think that somebody's leaving shit behind to come back and break into your garage. It's almost the same concept. So, they know you're going to recognize this wasn't here on the first date concerning a different area, when it was propped up in a different area where I had property hidden at 19 different spots, right? So they know then you're going to associate this to the act. So then on prior dates, when you move from that spot and move to another spot, and then you go to another spot that you surveyed, and then you say, okay, like say if you're going down the road and you see a place, you think to yourself, that'd be a good place. I can, duck 300 feet in and go hide some property up. And so then 3 days later, you go to enter that place, and the mounds of dirt are there. Okay? That's their way of saying, we know you're coming here to hide property at. Why? Because they're fucking monitoring you 24/7. And if you don't believe that, well, the YouTube account you're in right now, watching this video, go down to the very first video that was uploaded to it. It's a video of a video being made showing my live Periscope video broadcast, okay, catching non-consensual remote neural monitoring eye lens implants in my eyes. That enables them to see everything I see. Then through the tracking, they know everywhere you're at, so they see what you're doing, okay? They see what you're fucking doing, and they know where you're at doing it at. And so then they just say, okay, well, we can see where she's hiding it at, so all we got to do is prop up the prop, damage the property, and then when she comes back to another area and sees the prop, she's going to remember that act, and since she's doing the same thing, she's going to know that that act is correlated to the same thing she's doing, but just at a different property. So that's what gang stalking does. These little six satanic bitches, they create the act and reinforce it by repeating it. They propped up this shit at the Octopus Tree location on over 100 different dates. Because that's how you create the anchor and reinforce it to create the brainwave, brain entrainment, visual brain entrainment, to create the response, which is the response was to the association of the dirt mound to the act. That way, after they repeat it over and over and over again, it becomes an extremely entrained neural pathway. Therefore, in the future, whenever you see mounds of dirt, that's going to stimulate that memory reference, and it's going to stimulate the brainwave. As a direct result, the potentiated frequency output of the visual entrained pathway fires, and then remote neural monitoring latches onto you neurologically, remotely, from a distance, remote neural monitoring, where they monitor you neurally remotely. And they're able to neurally hack onto you by and through many different means. One of them is by exciting an entrained pathway. The entrained pathway has to have the association. The only way, in order to create it, the only way you can have an association is by and through creating it to a negative act that they know the victim will remember. Memory referencing. So go to Google and type in at Google remote neural monitoring and memory mapping and memory stimulation. And this can also be directly connected to other aspects of BCI, which is brain to computer interface. That's a fucking literally. Because think about it. If you go by an area, you say, okay, I look up in here, and there's a gazillion places I can go and ditch a bag of clothes at 300 feet off the road. 300, 400, 500 feet off the road. So then you do that on Monday, and then you come back to the area on Wednesday. You never went into the area. You just looked at it from a distance. Then what you do on Wednesday is you bring a bag of property to the area. And then when you enter it, as soon as you enter it, this shit's here. Okay? And there's no type of work at all concerning potting plants or shrubs or anything else. They did the same thing at my wooded area off of Octopus Street location. They propped up. You know what they did one time? I went to bed at I got in my tent about 5 o'clock. All right, and stayed in it. Woke up the next morning and opened up the tent door, and guess what was there? Hold on a second. And guess what was there? A big, gigantic, big ass mound of dirt, 1 inch away from my tent door. 1 motherfucking inch away from my tent door. Okay, 1 inch away, meaning that because like some of these tents, they have flaps. One will seal the tent closed, and the other one is like a net, so that you can, when you get in the tent, you can have some air, but yet still has some sense of privacy. So when you get in your tent, you close up your tent, you can no longer see out of it, right? So you get in your tent, you watch a movie, you go to bed, you wake up the next morning, and there's a big ass 1.5 foot tall pile of a mound of dirt 1 inch away from the tent door, right in your field of view. When you open up the door in the morning to get some air in the tent, and it's right there for you to see. That's done in order to make you hypervigilant about your safety because somebody's approaching your shit while you're asleep. That's a fucking literally. So, and what does gang stalking try to do? It tries to interfere about property theft, assaults, robberies, rapes, okay, arrests, tickets. So how would they make a woman feel unsafe? Well, we'll just prop up a big, gigantic, big-ass mound of dirt 1 inch away from her tent of her door at night, so when she wakes up, it's the first thing she sees. That's a fucking literally. That's what gang stalking does. It uses these useful idiots and these dum-dums who don't have any clue about what's going on concerning the community-based harassment. And it's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if this is not a public worker through the city of San Diego doing this. Because think about it, how many different people, I mean, because this crime is organized crime in the system. So, I mean, all they got to do is make a fucking phone call when it comes to landscape workers and public workers that might interface with dirt and say, hey, can you bring them, some dirt over? And they'll just dump it off at 3 or 4 different fucking spots, and they've achieved their goal. Visual stimulation of a visual memory reference. And by the way, stimulating visual memories is so for that it's concerning what's reported, is so that the perpetrators can stimulate the potentiated frequency output from the visually entrained pathway, which is created and reinforced as a result of the nonstop repetition of the same act being done. Now, once it's reinforced, that neural pathway creates what is known as a potentiated frequency output. Therefore, anytime in the future when the victim sees the prop, the brain will recognize it through memory referencing and through association, and it will stimulate that brainwave to fire so remote neural monitoring can latch on it in real time. And you can fucking be anywhere. So research remote neural monitoring and Wi-Fi, including, they can project Wi-Fi anywhere. In fact, at wooded areas, all they got to do is come on the fucking property and hide a Wi-Fi box. I got to go. Everybody have a good day.